Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TBV Wrestling Podcast. It's the only wrestling podcast on air where everything is yet to be determined. I'm one half of our color commentary team. I'm your favorite wrestler's favorite podcaster, Derek Schoenfeld. And to my right is the Marty Jannetty. To my Shawn Michaels, Michael Gay. How are you doing today?
I was doing okay until the Marty Jannetty reference. So now I'm going to be looking around me to make sure that there are no plate glass windows to be thrown through.
It's all right. You don't have to worry about it. I didn't walk in wearing leather and earrings and flamboyant everything.
At least today.
Yeah.
So welcome. As you can see, we're testing stuff out. We're trying new things. Right now, we still don't have a name, but we think that our name is to be determined because Derek was right. Everything is, in fact, to be determined. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to cover, regretfully, because it happened, so we feel obligated to cover it, the event that was Backlash.
Also known as the WWE Fan Mass Exodus.
I know, right? WWE Hot Garbage 2018, their new pay-per-view.
Hashtag Roman Reigns is apparently Vince's base still.
I know. So true. He's like, I don't care if people walk out, the big guy's winning.
Big guy's winning. Oh, wait, it's New York. That's our biggest market. We need to fix something.
Where's Daniel Bryan? No, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Backlash, but really our focus is going to be what we feel the fallout from Backlash is going to be, both in terms of the annual summer cuts and what this means as far as angles go going into their next pay-per-view, Money in the Bank, which is one of our favorites. And probably in the next couple weeks we'll tell you about our own personal Money in the Bank challenge. But I think the real results that everybody's concerned with, Derek, is going to be how you and I did in the Backlash challenge. And just to give you a recap, and Derek will go over the results, Derek and I have what we call the Belt Challenge, where each pay-per-view event is assigned a certain championship. Well, not each one has a separate championship, but the big four are for the Universal title. And the other ones are either for the United States title or the Intercontinental title. What happened?
The first one, I won.
Oh, nice. Holy cow, I just saw that. I'm like, oh crap, he did. So what happened was, so we'll give you a little background to that. So I told you about the institution of what we called confidence points. And so confidence points, so we would pick the winners, but we would assign confidence points to each one. And we did that because Derek and I had tied like 3 pay-per-views in a row. And so Derek, after Backlash was over, Derek texted me, and we realized that we had tied. And so even with confidence points, we had tied. And so it was a little insane, but Derek just pointed something out to me. You saw breaking news live on the podcast, or live recorded on the podcast. So Derek, walk us through the results. And apparently I'm no longer the Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, the actual score was 22 to 24, I believe. And that's due to a calculation error on my part. Zayn and Owens did not, in fact, win. Instead, it was Strowman and Lashley. And for whatever reason, I just marked both as winning, which is not the case. Unlike Styles versus Nakamura, where both ended up losing. So that makes me the current reigning Intercontinental Champion, and much like The Miz, I'm going to make that title relevant again. So relevant, in fact, that the face over here will never see that title in their possession again. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a lackluster run like what happens every time the Intercontinental title is off of The Miz.
I can't believe you just accused Seth Rollins of having a lackluster Intercontinental title run.
I don't consider Seth Rollins a babyface.
Fair enough. Well, it was a good run at champ, and we'll just have to see what happens at Money in the Bank. We'll tell you more about our Money in the Bank challenge. And but I will say this, though. If you take a look at the end, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, or I'm so desperate for my prediction to eventually be true, but if you take a look at the end of the tag team match after, okay, first of all, I did find it kind of interesting that after Nia Jax gave a whole speech about anti-bullying, that Braun Strowman just proceeded to bully Sami Zayn. He was like, hey, I outweigh you, and I'm significantly bigger than you. let me just beat you up after the match is over.
Well, you see, the whole thing with that is, in order to have a good storyline, you have to have someone acting like a jerk. So the fact that WWE has the whole Be a Star campaign, as nice of a sentiment as it is, unfortunately, it doesn't really work with their product.
Yeah. They're like, oh, crap, storylines. No, but okay, but if you look at the end of the Strowman-Lashley match, there was a part where Lashley just looked over and stared at Strowman. Like, there was this weird stare, and in my mind I'm thinking, is he, like, because all of a sudden it became the Strowman show where he just wanted to body slam everybody. And so I'm just wondering if that's planting the seeds. By the way, I loved the video package on Raw for Bobby Lashley. I kind of wish they would have done that in the very beginning. It gave you a little bit of background, and it gave you a little bit of why this should be so important.
You know, the video package would have made more sense if they actually had some reason for him to be there. I mean, if we keep taking a look at it, he hasn't really done much. And like you said, there may be seeds planted there for a Strowman versus Lashley feud. But I don't really see them going through with it. I don't know why. There's just this gut feeling that if the Roman Reigns experiment fails even worse, that they might try to force Bobby Lashley back into that spot. And ironically enough, if you look at history, Bobby Lashley was the first Roman Reigns. I mean, you've got to think of a big guy who was pushed way too soon, doesn't have the greatest mic skills in the world right off the bat, and you take a look at him, and the fans didn't, cheer him. And instead, they were cheering for the underdog, also known as the fan favorite, in CM Punk. And in this case, instead of, Roman Reigns getting cheered like they want him to, you've got people like Daniel Bryan getting cheered. You've got people like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who are supposed to be the heelish of heels, getting far more cheers than Roman ever will.
That was pretty intense, and I totally agree where you're coming from, and I totally see that. I don't know. I totally get where you're coming from. I feel like Lashley's a little different than his first run because now he's had some time in Impact. Now he's had some time to get seasoning. Like, this is almost the Lashley. Like, he has a little bit of a human, compassionate side to him. It's almost like this is the Lashley that we should have had the first go round. Like, now there's some layers to him and some dimensions, and I'm just interested to see what they do. I don't know that I feel like Strowman's ever going to be a champ, and this might just be skewed by the fact that I was watching the Andre the Giant documentary, and our favorite, Uncle Dave Meltzer, was talking about how they never made Andre the champion because, and Bruce Pritchard even alluded to this in some of his podcasts, because there were some people that either A, didn't need the belt, or B, you had to realistically say from an angle perspective who would beat them. Like, if Strowman had the belt right now, because so far it doesn't seem that he can lose to anybody. I mean, they've even made him seem impervious. Like, they've even made him seem strong to Brock Lesnar.
The Undisputed Era. That's who you could have come up and beat Strowman. Use the numbers game to his advantage. And unlike the numbers game with, like, the New Day, where they're kind of jokesters, or even just like your standard tag team numbers game, the Undisputed Era has 3 other guys who can be on the outside while you have someone like Adam Cole or Roderick Strong facing Strowman. And all of them are kind of renowned for being more of thinking wrestlers, so being smart and coy and finding really scummy ways to win matches rather than just using numbers to overwhelm. So you'd have like Bobby Fish and Adam Cole sitting there and using their brains in order to figure out what the best way to get the person in the ring to win. And I could totally see an Adam Cole winning by dubious means against Strowman and holding on to that title for a while.
But you're missing out. You're forgetting one important factor. That involves foresight and investment in people not named John Cena.
Oh, I forgot. This isn't New Japan. My bad.
I know, right? And we're going to talk about New Japan today in our Indie Corner. In fact, you might start to see our Indie Corner become a good section of what we do. So with Backlash, okay, so besides the fact that it was hot garbage and everybody felt the same way. So besides the fact that, sorry, I had a little issue with recording. So besides the fact that Backlash was hot garbage, what else stood out to you from that pay-per-view? Anything of note or interest? I mean, we could sit here and go, this sucked, this sucked, this sucked. but anything stood out to you?
If I had to pull out 2 positives, because that's all I can pull out from the pay-per-view. Oh, actually 3 positives.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, getting real here. The first positive would be Randy Orton not winning the United States Championship. I thought he was going to. I was like, oh, we're going to have a lull. Orton wins, RKO out of nowhere. Jeff Hardy's going to go for like the swanton and get caught out of midair. That didn't happen, so I was really happy about that. The Elias segment, I found it hilarious.
I'm sorry. The Elias segment was awesome because, I mean, first of all, and by the way, speaking of Elias, part of my favorite commentary in the Greatest Royal Rumble, and I know that the commentary team got smacked, was Michael Cole's joking obsession with Elias. It made my day, like whenever Elias was threatening to get kicked out or whatever, and he was like, oh good, Elias is safe. Okay. I thought that just made my day. Anything Elias does is gold. I'm sorry.
Elias has like, I want to say like honky tonk man heel.
Yes!
So like,
He's cool, he's cocky, he's bad.
but unlike the honky tonk man, the fans really, really do like him. Whereas I felt like the honky tonk man, looking back on some of it, the fans just wanted him gone.
Well, he was a heel in every sense of the word. By the way, Honky Tonk Man, longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time.
Give the Miz a bit.
I know, right? Listen, Honky Tonk Man was about guitar shots before Jeff Jarrett. I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah, but Jeff Jarrett's were better.
True. Except there's a funny story you'll have to check out on the podcast where they forgot to gimmick one of Honky Tonk's guitars. And I think he hit like the Ultimate Warrior with a non-gimmicked guitar. Yeah, there was like, I think the blood was real or something like that. And I was like, I was kind of sad until I remembered that.
But as far as Elias goes...
Yeah, let's go back to Elias. Sorry, I digressed.
The fans honestly enjoy his work. I mean, he's really, really good in ring. And on top of that, his mic work is absolutely stupendous.
And he's friends with Bruce Springsteen, apparently. Bruce Springsteen calls him the boss.
Yeah. It's weird. But when I was watching NXT and he was down there, I didn't think he would be a main roster player. And when he just vanished off NXT TV, I honestly thought he was about to be released. And then he started popping up on the main roster doing the whole walking through the crowd thing. And I was like, okay, so they're bringing Elias to main roster. And I mean, he wasn't that great in NXT. And I don't think he's going to last very long. I figured he'd be in like a very similar spot to where Ty Dillinger is right now. So the fact that he has made himself into a main event star and taken what creative's given him and just ran with it is absolutely amazing. I give all the props to him in the world.
Yeah, he was entertaining, and that segment was funny. One of my favorite parts was when the conga line was leaving, and Aiden English wanted to join the conga line, and Rusev had to stop him. I don't know. I don't know. It was a really fun segment, and I like the Bobby Roode DDT, just out of nowhere, and then the celebration. But it was a nice needed break from all the crappy action.
Oh, yeah. I kind of feel like it wasn't supposed to be thrown in there originally, but they were kind of seeing fans start to get agitated and realize that, oh, Reigns is coming out last, so they're going to be even less happy. Let's try to keep them in their seats a little bit longer.
They probably had a Roode Elias match set up, and they went, listen, change. We need everybody who's extra back here. Just go. Have a conga line. No way, Jose. It's your time.
Go, no way. If I had to pick a best match of the night, it would have been The Miz versus Seth Rollins.
Definitely. And that was the first match of the night, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, after that, it was downhill. Like, it was hard to compete with that. I think AJ and Nakamura would have been the best match had the
if it
ending been
didn't
better.
end the way it did, yeah. The ending was... It was stupid. If you're going to have it so that they were both down, don't end it with a double low blow. Like, I like the low blow sequence where he got hit and then he hit Nakamura right away.
And even the double one wasn't bad to me because it was like, okay, now, but if it had gone past that instead of ending like that.
I feel like if you really wanted to end it with, like, a double knockout, essentially, I would have done something like a style clash through the announce table, or even something like a Kinshasa into the turnbuckle pole, and Nakamura goes down because his knee hits the pole, and both men are down because Nakamura's knee is trashed, and Styles is clearly unconscious. But ending it with a double low blow, I just felt was the wrong way to go.
Yeah, like I would have liked to see them, like, both struggle to get up at like 9. And at 9 both struggle to get up, and then maybe just do a huge finish there where they've literally taken each other to the end. But yeah, that Miz Rollins match, they cannot make a bad match. Those two cannot have a bad match.
Oh, no way. Like, I'd say from the time when I first saw The Miz when he was tagging with Morrison to now, there has been such a big change that it's hard for me not to cheer him. I remember when he originally won the Money in the Bank case before cashing it in, and even then I was like, this Miz guy, he's going to be something, because I had watched him, like I said, with Morrison, and I always thought, he's good, but not there yet. Then he started developing his own personality, going with the whole, I'm the Miz, and I'm awesome. And I was like, okay, I can get behind this. And he started doing things like, flipping the W upside down on the mics and just being just cocky and really, really playing up his persona. And all the while learning as he was in the ring and getting better in the ring and learning that dynamic to the point where now I'd say he's top heel in the company.
I don't know, and I know that I laid out my fandom early on. But I don't know. I know that Flair, quote unquote, gave him the figure 4, but I feel like he possesses a lot of Flair qualities, and that he'll enhance whoever he like. The way he reacted, the way he sold Rollins, like he's not afraid to sell to somebody else, which isn't true for all the wrestlers. Like, I think that the reason why Rollins looked so good was partially because of how the Miz sold him. Like, the Miz put him over.
The Miz is amazing at selling just him getting beat up.
Yeah.
Like, there's some times where I'm like his match on SmackDown, I thought that was just as good, if not better, than the Rollins-Miz match at Backlash.
Yeah, definitely. He just has this skill, and I don't know, like the way he puts people over, his cockiness, he's like that heel that people kind of like for his work ethic. And I mean, and I'm sorry, he does remind me of Flair in that that he puts the time in. And even John Cena, I loved it in his when him and Roman Reigns were talking crap, and Cena even said it, and I think it was true when he said, look at The Miz. I can't stand The Miz, but The Miz goes out there and works every single day for what he's got.
Oh, yeah. The other thing with The Miz, like I said, his SmackDown match this week was amazing, and just the fact that sometimes he can find really interesting ways to still pull out the win. Like, after Hardy hit the Swanton, I was like, oh, that's it. Hardy's going to Money in the Bank. And the fact that Miz rolled him over, got the pin, and then rolled out the ring while still selling the Swanton, like the devastating move it was.
I know, right?
Was genius. He was sitting there like he just had all of his ribs fractured and still managed to pull out the win.
He looked like the guy, he looked like the scrapper. He's like, okay, I got the pin, I'm out of here, before he kicks the crap out of me. Like, it looked like he gave his last bit of energy to do the pin. You're right on that. So props to them for that. Okay, so now let's take a look at. Oh, I'm sorry. You had two things. You have a third one, right?
Oh, the third one was the Miz Rollins match. Second was Elias, and the third was that Orton didn't win.
I know, right? Although I would be interested to see an RKO out of a Swanton, just to see it happen, but not like as an end to a match. I don't know. Okay, so let's look at the fallout from Backlash, because usually when you look at the pay-per-view, now the usual thing is where do we go from here? But as we were prepping for the show today, show prep, I'm excited that we said that. But as we were prepping for the show today, Derek did bring up a point that as summer is approaching, this is usually when the WWE decides to do their cuts. And so taking a look at Backlash and who was there and the lack of appearance thereof, and taking a look now that we've gone through a WrestleMania, a Greatest Royal Rumble, a Greater Royal Rumble, the Super Greatest Royal, I'm sorry, I'm making this stuff up. But now that we've gone through these pay-per-views, we've done the Superstar Shake-Up, we're going into the summer months and having, it's Money in the Bank, Extreme Rules, SummerSlam are the next three, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so now taking a look. So we're going to take a look and see who gets cut on the roster, because when the summer cuts start coming, who do we see getting kicked out? So
All right,
Derek,
let's
lead it off.
power rank this. I'm gonna steal this from the boys at Going in Raw again. I really love their podcast, so shout out to them. But we're gonna power rank. So we're gonna pick the 10 most likely people who we think are gonna get cut.
All right.
So let's go with number 10. I'm gonna say Titus O'Neil.
Oh. See, I would agree with that, but they have him doing so much community service work. I wonder, though, if they'll, like, I don't know if it's that they'll cut him or move him into, like, a front office role, like be a WWE ambassador, because his ring work is done. And I didn't realize he was, like, getting up there as far as time worked.
Yeah,
Like
he's-
mid-40s or something like that.
I think he's like mid-40s, and he's been around since I want to say like mid-2000s.
So I think that I think they would cut him, but I think what they would do is move him into like a front office position or be like an ambassador, because you always see him at charity events, the Be a Star campaign when they did the Black History Month stuff. So I could see them transitioning out of a wrestling role.
And if you get rid of Titus O'Neil, my number 9 and number 8 would be Apollo Crews and Dana Brooke.
Yeah, Dana Brooke has no spot.
It's unfortunate, too, because she's really athletic.
Yeah, and she's, I mean,
I think it was purely because of her mic work that she wasn't able to get over.
yeah, and I loved how they brought her in as the bodyguard to Charlotte. Like, it had that heel fit that, you know, I've got some muscle to help me out and all of that.
I feel like she got Alex Riley, essentially.
Yeah,
Like-
no, you'll have to fill me in. That's a
So,
foreign reference
Alex
to me.
Riley was pretty much the Miz's bodyguard during his Money in the Bank run up until he had the WWE Championship. They ended up having a falling out, and Riley ended up going and doing his own singles thing. But he was never able to really get over with the crowd because his persona wasn't completely there, and his mic skills were lackluster. But I always liked him for his in-ring work. And it just feels like Dana Brooke was kind of put on the same trajectory she was put with a big star. She was used in that bodyguard kind of role, and due to her mic work, her athletic ability was ignored. It's really unfortunate, but like they say in WWE, mic work is essential. Now, if you were to go somewhere like New Japan, where there's less mic work, and you probably just do like a challenge promo here and there, or like a champion speech, you could probably do better there, but there's not a place for female superstars in New Japan.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, even if she went down to like the Indies and got some seasoning there or something, because she was athletic, and I think that her wrestling skills, it was raw. Like, she was raw. She just needed some seasoning. And I was really excited when they put her with Charlotte Flair, because I thought that maybe she could work with Charlotte and get that skill and kind of branch off from there, but it never really panned out. Okay, so you're 10. You're 9 and you're 8. Basically, Derek is looking at the end of Titus Worldwide this summer, so enjoy it while you can. I will say it was a little sad because last night I was teaching some kids at our church, and one of the kids out of nowhere, no joke, I'm not joking, went Titus Worldwide, and I don't want to see his little heart broken.
I don't want to see Titus Worldwide break up, but if I had to pick some outliers who might get released, that's who I'd go with. Speaking of outliers, my number 7 would be Alicia Fox.
Wait, she's still in the WWE?
Yes.
Isn't she injured or no?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it seemed like that she got injured right when they actually started giving her some. Now, why do you think that Alicia Fox would be number 7?
Mostly because you're seeing a lot of influx of female talents, and I just don't see how she can return and fit in there. Like, I'm not going to say Natalia's going to be released, because she's not going to, but I could see her starting to near the retirement point. However, with Alicia Fox, she just really has nowhere to fit in. It's kind of like a Dana Brooke situation, except for the fact that Alicia's a little less talented in ring, and her character works a little bit better. I just don't see where she can fit in. I mean, on SmackDown, you've got the iconic duo. You've got Becky Lynch. You've got Charlotte Flair. You can even throw Zelina Vega in there once she and Andrade Cien almost start doing stuff. On Raw, you've got Sasha Banks. You've got Bayley. You've got, well, not Absolution anymore. They're on SmackDown. But you have the Riot Squad. I mean, there's just, like I said, no place for her to be. The only way I could see her and Dana maybe staying is if they do decide to introduce women's tag team belts. Just have them partner with somebody. That way there's an extra tag team there.
No, that makes sense. So far you're pretty money. Remember, and for those of you, I'm going to stop right now in the middle of this, not to interrupt you, but for those of you that are fans of the show, and, well, we're just going to pretend that there are fans because that makes it a lot less depressing. But for those of you that are fans of the show, we are starting a campaign to make Derek a booker. Now, we're not picky about where he is going to be a booker. We're not picky about what federation. Now, I'm trying to convince Derek that he's got to start out small and, and kind of build his weight. Because, one, it'll make his story that much more interesting. And two, he can cut his teeth. And I'm not going to lie, a part of me is selfish because I thought to myself, if Derek can become a booker, I can fulfill a bucket list item of becoming an on-air authority figure for a wrestling federation. I don't need the power. I just want to be an on-air authority figure because I think that would be interesting. So there are 2 hashtags we're trying to find this for. So hop on to any federation, the CWF if you're local, or Impact, WWE, whatever, and use either 1 or 2 hashtags. We have not decided yet. It's TBD, just like our name. One is Derek for Booker. The one that I'm a particular fan of is Booker D. I'm just going to let that one sit there, and I just want to stop. Like I think that the time is now. Derek's time is here. His time is now. The Booker is here.
And I mean, even if it's a foreign promotion, like, hey, send me to Britain. I'll go work for Defiant as a booker. I know those guys pretty well, not like in a personal sense, but like in a wrestling sense. But yeah, it would be really fun if I could get in as a booker. But if not, I'll still be sitting here recording podcasts either way, working at my job at GameStop, making them dank buns.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, is CWF the local one in Arizona, right? The one that performs at like random places?
There's several local ones in Arizona. I just can't remember the names.
That's how we're going to get it started, folks. I'm going to be doing some research. This is what I'm going to do on my downtime. All right, so going back to the top 10 list. So far we have for Derek, number 10, we had, who was it? Number 10 was Titus O'Neil.
Titus, Apollo Crews, and Dana Burke are 8 and 7. And
Alicia Fox was 6.
Yes.
Who's number 5?
Actually, 9, 8. Alicia Fox was 7.
Alicia Fox 7.
I mismathed. If I had to pick a number 6, I would pick the Ascension.
I wish I could have a comeback, but I don't. I feel like the Ascension was totally botched from the beginning. I watched them in NXT. When I first started getting back into wrestling, I watched the Ascension in NXT, and I thought they were going to be huge in the WWE because they were that. I know that there were the LOD comparisons because of how they looked, but they just came in and destroyed people, and it was like they were this team that you act. And I don't know. Credit to Triple H. Like, if I'm Triple H, I might be mad about how the WWE handled Ascension.
I know that Triple H was mad about Apollo Crews getting called up based off the news I heard around it because he felt like Apollo got called up way too soon, but Vince wanted him up there. I feel like it was sort of the same thing with the Ascension. However, I kind of get the feeling that with them, Triple H has always liked them. It was just Vince deliberately buried them to make a point that, hey, this is my company and not NXT. And you can see that a lot with like the younger crop of NXT stars that were brought up. Like, you've got Tyler Breeze and Fandango. Like, as much as they're doing really great as the Fashion Police now, for a while there, it looked like they were also going to be released.
They had a great match with the Usos. Like, they had a couple really incredible matches.
They're amazing. They just don't get enough credit.
I'll tell you what, with the Ascension, one thing that I noticed was the announcers in NXT. And I'm sorry, NXT, it might become my favorite over the WWE, but that I remember when I watched some NXT because I wanted to start getting back into it, they made the Ascension seem imposing. Like, when the Ascension came out, the fan in me went, holy crap, something's going to go down right now. Like, something is going to go down.
The Ascension were a very, very scary tag team. And you could also look at it like another good example of what I call Vince bearing NXT talent is what they did to the Vaudevillains.
Oh, my gosh.
Because that was another really, really hot NXT tag team. They weren't like the Ascension where you were expecting them to just go in there and destroy. But the way they delivered their characters was very clever, and their athleticism was clearly on display. And instead they come up, they do the time machine thing with the New Day, which was clever, and I enjoyed it, and then nothing. And then you have Simon Gotch leave, and I don't mind what Aiden English is doing now. I think it was smart of him to stay with the company until they could find a use for him. But partnering him with Rusev was a genius idea. Now we've got Rusev Day, and it's great. Which is why I also don't think that they should split the two apart because, I don't want to see Rusev and Lana. I want to see Rusev and Aiden English.
No, it makes sense. Okay, so number 6 we have, number 6, so you're counting the 6, are you counting number 6 as both?
Yes,
Okay,
since they are a tag team.
So Connor and Victor, it's been fun. Number 5.
Number 5... Got to mull it around in my head a little bit.
Some people that I know some names, and I keep throwing this guy out, and if I take him from your top 10, I apologize. You can tell me where he would rank, but I keep bringing up Ty Dillinger.
He'd rank number 1.
Oh, Ty, no. He embodies how many fans we hope to have someday. So Ty's number 1 spot, spoiler alert there. Let's see. I just feel like there's such a glut of talent. I feel like Kurt Hawkins has run its course.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could really, I'd put Kurt Hawkins easily at number 4, not number 5. Mostly because I could still see him maybe doing something with, partnering him with, Zack Ryder again, just for, a little bit of fun. Because Zack Ryder doesn't have anything to do either.
Zack Ryder would be in my top 10, too. It was like
Zack Ryder's number 5, spoiler alert.
Woo, woo, woo.
Woo, 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 bye, bye, bye. But, yeah, that just leaves number 3 and number 2.
I think it's time for Brock Lesnar to go. Hot take. I'm kidding.
Hot take, Brock Lesnar does need to go. Won't be released.
Okay, so random thought. For a second, I thought you said Bark Lesnar. And this had me going on this whole tangent of dog wrestling costumes, like Bark Lesnar, the Beast Incarnate. That's going to be a future episode. Spoiler alert. This is why Derek is here to kind of help me stay on track. Bark Lesnar. I don't know. And I think you brought up a good point though about Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. I think the tag team depth in the WWE is severely lacking. You have some great ones, you have the New Day, and you have the Usos, the Fashion Police. But, even in WWE's heyday, you had your Demolitions, you had, the Legion of Doom, you had different tag teams. But even under that, you still had tag teams like Strike Force. They even brought the Steiner brothers in. There was still some tag team depth. But I don't know, I feel like WWE doesn't believe in the depth of tag teams, just let's have some really good ones, and then we'll just throw people together and see what works.
Well, the thing is, NXT proved that the tag team formula can work. Take a look at the Revival versus DIY. Ooh, that was a good match. Even a Revival DIY Authors of Pain triple threat.
The Revival has been so wasted now.
It frustrates me. They were my favorite tag team, and when they got called up, I was like, all right, here we go. Let's do this.
Was Dash Wilder the one that got injured?
Both of them got injured. Dash Wilder, I think, got injured first, and then Scott Dawson got injured afterwards.
I think that's what set him back, because when they came in, it was that, I don't know, it was wasted. So, number 3 and number 2, Derek, the people want to know.
As much as it pains me to say this, I think number 3 might be Rhino.
I can't argue with that. So far, I can't argue with any of these. I don't know. I feel like Rhino is one of those sentimental favorites that's kept around because he's a team player and he's Rhino. But really, I can't watch many Rhino Heath Slater matches anymore. And I think the only thing that keeps Heath Slater going at first was the I Have Kids gimmick, but even now that's gone.
I wouldn't say Heath Slater's going to get released because he's really, really good at comedic wrestling. All they really have to do is transition him into something else.
He's good when they need a thing like, hey, we need somebody to fall into a table full of food.
Yeah.
Hey, Heath? Hey, a new wrestler's coming in that needs to squash somebody. Heath?
The funniest thing to me is that if you look at the Nexus and who's been most successful out of it, you've got Bray Wyatt, but you can also say not Bray Wyatt because of how underutilized he typically is. From a championship perspective, yeah, Wyatt won the WWE title. But Heath Slater, despite, everything, is the only one who's really maintained persona consistently throughout, had something going consistently throughout, and still, really represents that era. Because if you look at Curtis Axel, he used to be, what was it? I want to say Michael McGillicuddy or something like that.
I think so. I think Michael McGillicuddy.
And then you had Bray Wyatt, who was Husky Harris. So, I mean, technically you can count both those characters as dead. Justin Gabriel went on to the indie scene as PJ Black. And you have Stu Bennett now wandering around the UK indie scene. I mean, they just squandered all of those guys, and it really, really was unfortunate. And I feel like keeping Heath Slater is kind of a way of trying to make up for it.
And I'm sorry. I see what you're saying, and just listening to all those names and thinking about what could be done. I've been on this big factions kick lately, and sometime I think we may have to conduct a segment or an episode where I affectionately call it The Death of the Faction.
Or the birth of new ones.
The system.
How about we just do a top 10 factions?
I totally agree. We're going to have to do a top 10 factions. That will be something because I have this whole ideal WWE Horseman situation in my head that I think would be great. We're going to talk about that later. But anyway, so we got the summer cuts coming. There's always a surprise cut. There's always that one person that gets cut.
My surprise cut is also my number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, go for it.
Former Cruiserweight Champion Neville.
Is that a surprise, though? Because they kind of benched him with this contract.
They benched him with the contract, but I don't see him benching him for that long. I can see him getting released in the summer when they're trying to free up room to sign more NXT talent.
See, I just think that now, I think Neville would be a great addition back to the WWE roster. Neville could go to somewhere like Impact and instantly become their main guy.
Dude, I want to see him go to New Japan and win the junior heavyweight title and fight guys like Will Ospreay.
Oh, he'd have way better matches and better talent in New Japan. It's kind of that eternal thing of where you want to go. If you want to go for better competition, go to New Japan. Better quality matches, you go to Ring of Honor, New Japan. If you just want to be the guy by virtue of your name and name alone, Impact will be like, yes, we'll pay you. Hence why Ric Flair is the current Impact champion. I'm kidding. I'm just saying that.
That would be Pentagon.
What would happen? Just a random question for you, Derek. What would happen if Pentagon became a Ultimate Fighter? Would that be Pentagon in the Octagon?
I'm disappointed that I know you sometimes.
Oh, man. And just so you guys know, I am a father of 3, so the dad joke is strong in me. Pentagon. I just picture Jim Ross like, oh, my God, it's Pentagon in the Octagon. Who will be gone after this match is over? Good God, King.
Ah! Good God, King. He's broken in half.
Somebody ring the bell. All right. So now looking at this, let's take a look at Money in the Bank. So let's move on to... Wait, hold on a second.
So, how about the Mets?
Okay, I think we're back. Sorry, we're having some recording issues. And we're back now. So now that we have taken a look at this top 10, and that was actually a really solid list. And I was thinking about it. If those 10 were gone, I don't think it would see a difference in WWE programming.
Not at all.
Personally, I just feel like unless they do more shows, they could really do a thinning of the talent. Like, I know you need to fill the house shows and there's some filler, but I don't know.
I've been hearing rumors based off a survey that was conducted that WWE might be looking to do a TV 14 show on the network. I think it would be interesting to bring ECW back and, actually make it ECW.
See, can we bring WCW back and make it WCW so the wrestlers are wasted and the cruiserweights steal the show and then they just get ironically taken by the WWE, who in fact owns WCW?
No.
Man, this is why I need to be the on-air personality.
I also have this weird gut feeling that the big announcement for the UK tournament, Triple H said he was going to give an announcement regarding the UK division. I think that Progress may be coming to the network. It's a really, really big, far-flung hunch, but you see people like Cassius Ohno showing up on Progress television, and it makes you wonder.
No, I think that would be good. And I'll tell you right now, watching what Triple H is doing, he's laying the groundwork for the future. I know everybody gives him a hard time and stuff and about, his history with not putting people over. But if you look at the quality of talent he brings in and how he develops the storylines and how he allows people to breathe, there's a reason why people can't wait for him to take over. And I'm really hoping that if Vince does pursue this alternate football league, that he does hand over the operations to Triple H, even though everybody that seems to know Vince thinks that he will not at all.
I feel like Triple H will have significantly more power, though I don't see Vince handing over the reins completely until he's dead.
Well, and I did hear something interesting that with Fox not only wanting, Fox wants to purchase the WWE, the brand, there are TV negotiations, but there's an outside rumor that Fox is trying to buy the WWE, and with Vince moving on to this new phase with other ventures, that there's a chance. And one thing that I think it was Dave Meltzer brought up was the idea that if somebody were to buy the WWE, and this would be the move that I would do, I would keep Vince. I would not keep Vince. I would keep Triple H. I would bring Triple H on board and say, I'm a media guy. I don't know wrestling. You know wrestling. You run the wrestling product, and we'll take care of the business.
I would just make sure that it stays in whoever's running it deserves to be running it. So let's say 40 years from now, Triple H is still there. He's a senile old man, out of touch with the fans. Replace him. Why?
But I think that honestly, with Triple H, he seems to be so forward-thinking that he would do that. I could see him handing over creative to the next person. I could see him, if he follows that model, like he does in NXT, having that next person.
It would be interesting to see who that next person would be, too. I'd want to say it would be somebody coming up from NXT at the moment.
I could see it being a young man, a young booker. I just want you to hold on a second. Let me just paint a picture for you. Woo! He got his start in a local indie federation in Arizona. Through a fledgling podcast campaign, tens of thousands of people pushed him to his dreams, starting out booking in local markets, cutting his teeth, if you will, booking high-quality matches in low-quality venues, and then slowly but surely working his way up, going into a bigger indie federation, being an intern at one of the lesser federations like Ring of Honor or New Japan.
Saving Impact Wrestling.
You'll see Dave Meltzer still doing profiles on the man called the Savior of Impact Wrestling. Until one day he gets the call from Triple H himself, and says,
Hey man,
are you ready to play the game?
we want you to come to NXT.
And who is that man? The one and the only, Booker D. All right, sorry, I had to go with that. So let's move on to the fallout leading into Money in the Bank. Okay, so we will have a Money in the Bank predictions program coming up. And just to kind of give you an idea, before we end the show, we'll go with some podcasts that we have some topics that we have up. But so as we putting this, with our last segment, well, not our last segment, almost our second to last segment, Money in the Bank. Any early things that you see happening?
I see the Miz winning.
Well, there you have it, folks. You don't need to watch. No, and you were telling me this before the show, before we started recording. So tell me, why do you see the Miz winning?
I see the Miz winning because I see Daniel Bryan winning the championship at either SummerSlam or Survivor Series. If you give Miz the briefcase, as soon as Bryan wins, have Miz cash in and steal the championship right from under his nose. Build up a storyline where Bryan can't believe that the Miz just stole the title out from under him and give the Miz very, very much real heel heat. Have Bryan win the Royal Rumble like the fans have been clamoring for in forever, which will be right here in Phoenix, Arizona. And then, after Bryan wins the Rumble, have him challenge the Miz for the title at the main event of WrestleMania.
I honestly love that. The Miz versus Bryan at WrestleMania, and if you look at what the match is like, right now the only match that everybody's predicting will happen will be Charlotte versus Ronda, which I think could be good, which I think will be like more star power. But having the Miz versus Bryan at WrestleMania would be huge. Not as huge as the 7th Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns match that I predict will be happening for the world title.
I think for the Universal title scene, if I'm going to be really honest, Roman won't be going in as champion, and he won't be leaving as champion. I believe it's going to be Samoa Joe versus Seth Rollins. Like I said, you can have Bryan win, or you can have Joe win. And you might be asking yourself, well, Derek, how do you get Joe challenging for the Universal title? That doesn't make any sense. And to that I respond, you trade Joe for Ronda Rousey. That way you get Charlotte versus Rousey, and you get Joe versus Rollins. Now, whether they do that or not, probably not.
I could see Joe and AJ at WrestleMania. I think Joe and AJ would have an incredible match. I mean, I saw some of their stuff at Impact, and I don't know. I just think that they've gotten better. And
the other match I could potentially see at WrestleMania for the Universal title would be Ambrose Rollins. Or even Rollins Elias. I really don't know who the second person is, but I have a feeling that Rollins is going to challenge for the title at WrestleMania.
I could see that. Now, folks, you take a look at that. You see that kind of booking that just happened right there. This is the kind of booking we could get in the local level. So if you know any local federations in your area that may be looking for a booker, there's only one person you need to consider, and that is Booker D, Derek Shaney-Felt. So looking at this with Money in the Bank, I don't really like Money in the Bank's always a crapshoot for me. I think the thing that gets me right now is the fact that Brock Lesnar will not be at Money in the Bank.
That irritates me beyond belief.
I just feel like it's going to, I don't think you have to have the champion on all the time. But here's what's ridiculous. Like, Hulk Hogan didn't wrestle every week. And Hulk Hogan wasn't even on every show every week. But I remember when I would watch All-American Wrestling, Primetime Wrestling, even the old days, and I'm not trying to say it was better. I'm just saying what I'm used to. The world champion was there, in some way, shape, or form, be it a segment, be it something. And I get that you want it to be, every time Brock Lesnar comes. Like, Brock Lesnar's an attraction. He's not a superstar. He's an attraction. So you want it to be a special event. But now it just seems, I just kind of wish that the champion was actually one of the regular superstars. I would love it if Brock Lesnar came out as an attraction, but not an attraction as far as he's the champion. Just an attraction as, hey, Brock Lesnar's here. Who's he going to kick the crap out of now as a special match? And then call it a day. Then back to the Octagon or back to his farm in Canada or Minnesota or wherever he lives. But I want to see my champion. I just don't like that the championship is, okay, I'll defend it now.
Well, as much as I give Roman Reigns crap, I'd rather him be champion than Lesnar at this point.
And that makes a lot of sense. I could totally see. Yeah, I mean, at least he would be there all the time, and you would have the champ. I mean, it stinks, but right now, I just have a feeling that they're. See, I went into this thinking that somehow Daniel Bryan is going to get into the Money in the Bank match and get the case, but then I hear your idea, and I'm like, no, that's really good, and that's what I would do. I don't know where they're going to go with Money in the Bank. I hear rumors that there might be a third Money in the Bank where they were going to do a tag team Money in the Bank match.
You see, I wouldn't mind that simply because it would make the tag teams a lot more important than they have been. And a lot of people are like, well, tag team matches don't usually turn out very well. And to that, I would all like you to go to your network and watch all of the TLC matches between the Dudley Boys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian. And realize that you are wrong. Everything you have to say about tag teams is wrong. And while you're at it, go watch DIY versus a Revival. And feel embarrassed about how the current WWE product is. Send an email to Vince McMahon complaining so that he can go on Twitter and say that wrestling fans are a bunch of idiots.
And then he goes, Hunter, we need to get Booker D. I'm not giving that up. Can you just picture? What's this pound sign? Booker D.
Don't understand what's going on Twitter.
What's happening on the Twitter?
I don't know what a burrito is.
I don't even know what to say. No, but I agree with that. Like, it can work when done properly, and I think it puts the tag. Like, you know what would be hilarious? Imagine Breezango having the briefcase and knowing that at any point in time Breezango can just cash it in.
Or even have like Breezango lose the briefcase and have a series of the fashion files where they're going around trying to find it.
See, like, but I heard that was it Brian Alvarez said something, that there was some advertisement, that some people got advertisements saying that there were going to be 3 Money in the Bank matches. So I wonder if that tag team thing's going to happen, because you're going to have Money in the Bank for the women, Money in the Bank for the men, and then you're going to have the tag team. I'm trying to figure out who would. I don't know who would be a good pick for the women. I keep thinking Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is due for something. She needs some kind of support. I'm done with the whole, hey, you're lovable, but we're just going to have you get beat up by everybody.
Asuka. Asuka's going to win the female Money in the Bank.
Dude, you're calling your shot right now. I'm glad we're recording this. All right, well, it'll be interesting to see how Money in the Bank plays out. I'm kind of interested that Braun Strowman's in Money in the Bank, and we actually talked about this, and I actually think we should bring it up to the crowd. Is imagine Braun Strowman with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like, just imagine Braun Strowman, just, out of nowhere. Like, imagine Braun Strowman just coming out, holding up the briefcase. And, Derek, I think that you need to share with people your idea for Braun Strowman's briefcase angle.
Oh, having him painted up so it says, get these hands, and have him just come out, like, regardless of the champion, and be like, are you going to get these hands? No, not today. And then go back.
Now, see, I went the round of, if we're going to make Strowman less of a champion and more of the special event. And see, I like Strowman because Strowman's not always in the title picture, but he plays prominently in anything. And by the way, there are a few things that were funnier to me than watching Strowman replay. Have you seen the video of Strowman doing Elf?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that was when he walks into the office and says, "I'm in love and I don't care who knows." Made my day. But anyways, I think that Strowman should lose Money in the Bank, and he creates his own briefcase. And it's the Get These Hands briefcase. And so when he cashes it in, all it really is he hands the briefcase to the ref and then just beats the crap out of whoever's there. And then he takes the briefcase back. It has no title shot, but it's just a play. Like, I think it would be perfect for how they've made Braun.
Yeah.
So let's say that he's about to get the briefcase and The Miz pushes over the ladder, screws Strowman, and gets the briefcase. Well, then he makes his own Get These Hands briefcase. And I like what he said, toss it to the ref, do a power slam, take it back, and leave.
Well, you could even turn it into, like, a sort of title of its own. So, like, have something like Kurt Hawkins win it at a runoff.
And Kurt Hawkins is just like, oh, you can't give me these hands because I've got the briefcase. And so he goes out to try to beat somebody up who he doesn't like and just gets decimated, and the other person walks off with the briefcase. I mean, there's a lot you could do with that idea if you just want to run with it. It could be like the new hardcore title.
I'm calling this right now. Nicholas makes a surprise appearance and wins the Get These Hands briefcase.
Chair wins the Gets These Hands briefcase.
This is amazing. All right, so that concludes where we see this going. We'll just be paying attention to more in the coming weeks and see. Now, one thing that we'll talk about is when we approach, and Derek and I were talking about this, and instead of doing the recap of match by match, if we do a Raw and SmackDown recap, really what it's going to be is just what stood out to us instead of doing the, Titus O'Neil and Apollo Crews lost to the Ascension. Oh, hey, it was a barn burner. Turns out Titus tripped before he even got out to the entrance ramp.
Just like in NXT.
I just can't even believe oh my goodness. And poor Baron Corbin. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn our attention now, and this is something that I've been pushing to happen because when Derek and when I started to rekindle my fandom for professional wrestling, and Derek and I started realizing that this was an area we could connect through. One thing I started noticing was Derek, noticed a lot. And when I say indie federations, I don't mean necessarily the every indie federation and minor one. Like we have one here called I think it's the CWF in Arizona, and we're not really going to talk a lot about that kind of thing unless he becomes a booker. Then we're going to push that thing hardcore. No, I don't want to be an honor personality. I want to be the voice of CWF. Okay, moving on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be focusing on some indie leagues, and really it's more like the third-party federations. Like, you have WWE, you have NXT, and there are some that we don't know a ton about, but really should. And thanks to Derek and what he's told me, I've actually started to take an interest and watch some of these matches and get to know some things. And it's actually interesting the quality of matches that exists beyond the WWE. And I remember my first thought, what got me kind of cued onto this, and then Derek, I'm going to hand it over to you, was when there was talk about New Japan doing these shows stateside, like in California and things like that, and that there were rumors that the WWE was getting scared. Now, my only exposure to New Japan, bear with me, okay? My only exposure to New Japan, what's that?
WCW.
Yeah, and so back in the days of WCW, now I'm talking before the Monday Night Wars. So I'm talking like Halloween Havoc 91. Like there was a match, I think it was in Halloween Havoc 91, and it was the Steiners versus a tag team from New Japan. And I kept hearing how New Japan loved the Steiners because they would just beat the crap out of each other and their strong style worked. Like I think in the match at Halloween Havoc, and I forget the tag team, somebody's nose literally got broken in the middle of the match and they just kept going. And so my introduction to New Japan was when Jushin Thunder Liger came and wrestled Brian Pillman, or whenever the WCW would have like an international tournament with really crappy graphics, and then they would have a New Japan team show up, or how the Steiners were huge in New Japan. I even think, did Ultimo Dragon compete in New Japan at a couple times? Yeah, I remember he had like 9 belts or something.
I want to say he did, but I'm not positive. I know that I want to say it's All Japan Pro Wrestling is what he's running currently, but I may be wrong. That's what my gut wants to say, though.
And okay, and that makes sense. And so I'll be honest, when I thought New Japan was kind of made up, or like this goofy league where I just thought it was another title to give people. But then when I started talking with you, and I think I even made mention of it, and you told me, no, this is a big deal, and, Vince was getting a little, WWE was getting a little worried that New Japan was starting to come stateside. And the more I started watching this, the more I started to realize, holy crap, there is something here. So talk to us, for those that may not know a ton about New Japan, if I can ask you a couple questions and then you just give me your thoughts. You're the resident indie pro here. Mm-hmm. You're like Dave Meltzer minus the lack of excitement about anything in life. I'm just saying based off of what I've heard. I mean, like hearing him on his podcast. So, first of all, with New Japan, what is their wrestling style like? Like, the WWE and NXT, what is their wrestling style, and how does it differ from what we might see on like WWE or NXT programming?
So with New Japan and a lot of indie promotions, they're a lot more free as far as what they let the wrestlers do. You're not going to see the standard WWE style where you've got to have a lot of rest holds and you've got to play it safe. They're more prone to taking risks. But if you look at New Japan in general, their style is what's called strong style. So it's a very, very stiff, hard-hitting form of wrestling. So you'll see things like people getting bruised. I think one wrestler delivered a headbutt so bad that he had to be taken to a hospital. You'll see guys like Will Ospreay just flipping all over the place, like no one's business. He had a spot where he climbed up one of the things holding the light set together near the ring at Wrestle Kingdom and jumped off of it. So you'll see a lot more risk-taking and a lot stiffer strikes. Occasionally you'll see the British strong-style wrestlers like Zack Sabre Jr. and Marty Scurll there as well. But I'd more classify Sabre as a torture hold specialist, but that's just me.
Okay, so when Nakamura came over, and I know he was a big deal in New Japan, right? And actually, AJ Styles and Nakamura had quite a feud in New Japan, correct?
Yes. Nakamura was the leader of Chaos, which originally started out as a heel faction. Around the same time, maybe a little bit later, I'm still a little bit fuzzy on the details as far as earlier New Japan. I'm more into the modern stuff now. Bullet Club was formed by Fergal Devitt, Bad Luck Fale, and I want to say Tama
Tama Tonga is just one of my favorite words to say, period. Just Tama Tonga.
He's one of the sons of Haku.
So, like, there's a Samoan presence, there's the Samoan family presence even in New Japan?
Yeah, 3 of the members of Bullet Club, who consist of the Gorillas of Destiny, they are all Samoan, and I believe they're all sons of Haku.
Okay, so then, for example, so going back to Shinsuke, when Shinsuke came over, he was called the King of Strong Style, and, I remember the video packages where he was renowned for his hard-hitting style. Now, when I started listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, and even on what happened with Tony Schiavone, one thing that they kept saying about Nakamura, well, I mean, they didn't say it a lot, but one criticism we heard about Nakamura was, yeah, he's intense, but he's nowhere near as intense as he was in New Japan. So tell me, I know the King of Strong Style nickname was legitimate when he came over. If I were to watch Nakamura in a New Japan match versus what I see in WWE, even in his most brutal matches, what would the differences be, I guess, or the main difference, or what would I see in a New Japan match that I wouldn't see in a WWE match?
Well, for one, there'd be a lot more room to breathe. So his matchup against AJ Styles at Wrestle Kingdom,
On a side note, I've heard that's like the match to watch as a primer for the feud. Like, it was just incredible.
It was amazing. I don't remember how long it went, but I'm pretty sure it went over 30 minutes. It was a really long match. Very, very good match. So it has a lot more length. There's a lot more in-ring storytelling since they don't do as much out-of-ring storytelling. On top of that, Nakamura's strikes are a lot stiffer. Like the Kinshasa looks absolutely brutal, whereas in WWE it's like, ouch, maybe that hurt.
Yeah, the Kinshasa, I'm not going to lie. When I saw him delivered to Austin Aries when he broke his orbital bone, that one looked vicious. But then I felt like they made him take a little bit off of it so he didn't break people's faces. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't look as intimidating. And there are times where I watch it where it looks like instead of the knee hitting the head, it looks like it's his thigh or hamstring.
Yeah, that's not how it looks.
I should say the quad
at all. And on top of that, the strikes, they are significantly more brutal. They're a lot stiffer. You can tell that there's a lot more contact made, and that's just strong style in general. But Shinsuke was legitimately the king of strong style. He was one of the best at that style of wrestling and delivering it.
Okay, so who are some superstars? Like if I were to look up New Japan, or if I were to look up New Japan on YouTube, and I were to say, okay, like one thing we always talk about is if you want to, everybody has their opinion. So if they say, oh, if you want to know about AJ Styles, you watch X, Y, and Z. Like if somebody asked me about Ric Flair, there'd be a list of matches. I would say, watch this in his heyday. I would point them to certain matches. So if you were to have like a primer, who are some superstars I would you'd want to pay attention to see the best of what New Japan has to offer?
Well, to start, I'd mention I want to say 2017 Wrestler of the Year, Kazuchika Okada. He's the current IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. He's held the belt for over 689 days, which is absolutely absurd. That's not a title reign you'd see typically in WWE anymore, let alone most wrestling areas. He's also had 3 really classic matches with Kenny Omega, who, in my opinion, is still the leader of the Bullet Club, but due to the infighting in the Bullet Club being told through story right now, may not be. And it has been confirmed that at the upcoming pay-per-view, it will be Kazuchika Okada versus Kenny Omega 4, because Okada's won 1, Omega's won 1, and they had a draw. So this will be the definitive blow-off match.
Was it due to a double low blow?
No. It was due to a timeout. So they had a 60-minute time limit. They fought all 60 minutes.
Or as they say in the old school wrestling business, going Broadway. Okay, awesome. So I'm sorry, I'll let you finish. Keep going.
The next person.
Was there one like Tanahashi or something like that?
Tanahashi is an excellent wrestler. He's the ace of New Japan, although some argue that Okada is the new ace of Japan. Hiroshi Tanahashi has been around for a long while. He just faced Okada at Wrestling Dontaku and lost, making Okada the person to have defended the IWGP Heavyweight title the most amount of times. And I'd also argue that match essentially was handing over the Ace title to Okada. Tanahashi, I would say, is not going to come to the WWE. He's starting to get up there in age. He's in his 40s, around the time when people start wrapping up their career.
I was listening to Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer, and people keep asking him if Tanahashi would come, and he said if Tanahashi would have, he would have done it by now. Like if Tanahashi wanted to go to WWE, he would have, because he's hit that point.
He's a really amazing wrestler. Naito, when he first started out, took a lot of inspiration from Tanahashi and used a lot of his moveset during his Stardust Genius gimmick days. However, that's no longer the case. Nowadays, if we look at Tetsuya Naito, he is the current Intercontinental champion over in New Japan, and is the leader of Los Ingobernables de Japón.
Which was originally going to be my nickname for this podcast, for me as a host, but then I found out it was taken.
Yeah, sorry, man. You're not the ungovernable of Japan.
Not yet, at least. So, question for you. Now, you brought up the Bullet Club, and you mentioned a couple names. So, to mainstream WWE fans, when AJ and Anderson and Gallows were together, they said, they talked about the club being reunited, and Corey Graves even made mention. Like, Corey Graves was really kind of the one that kind of brought that together and talked about the Bullet Club being together. And then when Anderson and when AJ got moved to SmackDown, was it moved to SmackDown, or was it Gallows and Anderson getting moved over to Raw?
SmackDown.
Okay, so what happened was when AJ Styles got moved over to SmackDown, and then Finn Balor was there, they talked about the Bullet Club reuniting, but they called it the Balor Club. And so now you're talking about Kenny Omega and the Bullet Club and the leader of that. So I know that if we went into the history of the Bullet Club, we could be here all day. But just giving a basic synopsis, why do I see patches of Bullet Club references in different federations?
Okay, so the Bullet Club has been around for a little bit. It was originally founded by Fergal Devitt, or as we now know him, Finn Balor. when he was getting ready to move over.
Was that when he was Prince Devitt or something like that?
Yes, that was when he was Prince Devitt. He went by the nickname The Real Rock and Rolla. And when he was getting ready to move over to WWE, you can't be leader of Bullet Club in New Japan if you're no longer there. So he was on his way out. AJ Styles was on his way in. And AJ Styles usurped him as the new leader of Bullet Club. And that's why we see a lot more expansion within the group. This expansion brings in people like Luke Gallows. You see people like the Young Bucks getting brought in. I want to say Chase Owens also got brought in. It's a little lesser known name of the Bullet Club, but he got brought in. And so AJ Styles, when he was getting ready to start heading over to WWE, was usurped by a junior heavyweight that they had brought in, who was a several-time junior heavyweight champion. Carl Anderson had brought him in during the period of time between Balor and Styles being leader, and this man was Kenny Omega. And
Now, some people have said that Kenny Omega is like one of the best wrestlers in the world.
oh yeah, most definitely.
Like, if you want to see one of the best wrestlers in any federation, anywhere, you watch a Kenny Omega match.
Oh yeah, he oozes charisma. His in-ring work is outstanding. And if you want to see someone who can really put it all on the line for 60 minutes, it's Kenny Omega. The other person being Kazuchika Okada.
And they're going to wrestle in their fourth match, right? You said they're going to... Okay.
Yes.
All right, so that's where it was. It was kind of like... So the Bullet Club is still around. It just changes forms. Now, right now there's an angle where Kenny Omega has a faction of the Bullet Club. Cody Rhodes is in charge of another faction of the Bullet Club. And they're fighting to see who the original Bullet Club is.
It's not quite like that. Bullet Club's gotten really, really big in recent years. However, there's been an ongoing feud since Cody Rhodes came in as, an underling of the Bullet Club. He's wanted to be the leader. However, Kenny Omega's the leader, and it all kind of exploded earlier this year with Cody Rhodes attacking Kenny Omega, which has kind of put the Bullet Club in a divide, especially since Kota Ibushi, who was Kenny Omega's former tag team partner, has also entered the mix, so it's the reuniting of the Golden Lovers. That being said, when you look at the situation, you've got Cody Rhodes kind of manipulating people into thinking that he's justified in doing what he's doing, when in reality he's really not. He's just hungry for power. So like one of the things he did was Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi said that they were the best tag team in the world. And, he went in and convinced the Young Bucks that that was a slight on them for being junior heavyweights. So now the Young Bucks are heavyweights, and they took offense to that statement because the Young Bucks are, I want to say, 7-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, and they're currently the co-holders of the Never Open Weight 6-man Tag Team belts. And so they took offense to that. However, they've started realizing that, Cody is kind of manipulating the situation, tried to stop his tyrannical usurping of Kenny Omega, but accidentally super kicked Kenny Omega instead, giving Cody the win. On the other hand, you also have people like Marty Scurll, who's like, this whole thing is frustrating me, why can't we get along? You have Hangman Page, who is so thoroughly convinced that Cody's right, because one of the reasons Cody attacked Kenny was because Kenny wanted a rematch for the IWGP United States Championship, and Hangman had come out to challenge, but Kenny's like, no, I get a rematch, which is justified, but Cody convinced Hangman that it wasn't.
Okay.
On top of that, you've also got the OG Bullet Club members, which include Bad Luck Fale, Chase Owens, and the Gorillas of Destiny.
Okay, so so now down the line, all right, so they have Cody Rhodes in there. Now they also have Davey Boy Smith's son, right? The British Bulldog's son.
Yes, but he's not in the Bullet Club. He's in a faction known as Suzuki-gun, and he tags with Lance Archer in a tag team known as the Killer Elite Squad.
Okay. And I heard something, I think it was Dave Meltzer again probably, but that they're really seeming like they're going to be the next big tag team, that they're trying to groom them right now to be a bigger tag team, like be the next in the big picture.
It definitely seems that way. They've had the heavyweight belts once. They lost it to Los Ingobernables de Japón at Wrestle Kingdom. But they're definitely really, really much of a threat. Like most of the Wrestle Kingdom match, they were absolutely decimating Evil and Sonata. So it wasn't like, oh, hey, you know, they lost the match. It was like, oh, hey, they lost the match, but at what price?
Okay. Well, now what are some ways people can, like, how do you watch New Japan? Like, if I wanted to check it out, what are some ways that you watch New Japan? I know they're on Access TV, right?
Yes, they are on Access TV. However, that's always, I want to say, a couple weeks behind from what I've seen, or that might just be me. But you can also access it off their streaming service, which is New Japan World. I believe it's about the same price as the WWE Network, if not a little bit cheaper. But that being said, it definitely is worth the money.
I've heard it's sometimes a better value than the network, depending on what you watch. But
It definitely is a better value than the network. The only issue is they don't always have English commentary. So if that's a deal breaker for you, that's a deal breaker for you. But for big events like Wrestle Kingdom, I think for Wrestling Dontaku, they typically do have English commentary.
one thing that I tried doing for a little bit, I had Sling TV for a while, and so I like Sling because they have the DVR feature. And so what I did was I set up New Japan, and you can actually look it up by name of program. And so what I did was I would just set it up to record anytime New Japan was on Access, and then I would just catch the episodes when I could. So it was pretty entertaining. So, Derek, I'm glad that you are our resident indie expert on this and bringing stuff up.
That being said, I am the indie expert, so from now on, anytime there's a big indie show, I'll make sure to inform you of any changes as far as titles go, or any big news, such as Chris Jericho returning and attacking Tetsuya Naito.
Yeah, Chris Jericho is in New Japan. I don't even know how to fathom that, but I will tell you that learning this has made me more interested in finding it more of a necessity to catch these New Japan shows. And so we want to cover some ground and make sure that we're covering all the different areas. And you may have noticed we spend a lot of time on the indie leagues as opposed to the WWE. But if you can tell, like, you know, we're just wrestling fans. And so I love that Derek brings that to the table. And so, Derek, let's hit up some theme music on our way out.
Bullet Club. For life.